Germany, a country with its engineering and financial capability, should have put into place by now 80% renewable generation of electricity. In fact, it's not, it's 50%. One of the major...
Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. Depending where you are. I just took buy on gold.
When it comes to the local planning procedures, it's extremely difficult. And speeding all these things up, it's not something a finance minister can just lift his hand and wave a magic wand. All these things have to go through very laborious local processes. So that's where all the detail will come in, and that's where the problems will lie, at the local planning level.
David, you've raised so many questions. I have so many more, but we have to leave it there. We'll chat on and off there on another occasion about this as well, including the huge questions that you and I and Annetta and everyone has about the debt break as well. And again, I want you to answer my question at some stage as well about the Frau Merkel legacy. But fascinating, absolutely fascinating. Thank you, David. Really nice to see you from Berlin.
Later, we'll solve all these other conundrums later, I'm sure, Steve.
Yeah, it'd be nice to see you in the flesh around the desk at some stage. Maybe we're going to have a new show where we'll sit with a bottle of red as well. Or is that a different kind of show?
Well, I hope so too.
That's a different kind of show. It's an evening show. David, thank you very much indeed for that. David
Thank
Marsh.
you.
It's nearly the weekend.
Bye.
David Marsh, Chairman of the Official Monetary and Financial Institutions Forum. That's OMFIF as well. Right, okay. So the first female Prime Minister of Sweden has resigned. Oh, really? She didn't last long, did she? How long did she last? Hours, apparently. Hours into her first day. Well, that didn't work very well, did it? After her coalition collapsed. The Social Democrat Magdalena Andersson's Green Party partners quit after the... Well, I mean, there is a metaphor for the previous story. Maybe we're seeing it here in Stockholm. Anyway, Andersson's Green Party partners quit after the Swedish Parliament rejected a coalition budget bill in favour of one presented by other groups. Complicated, isn't it? Other groups, including, Sweden Democrats, which is a populist party with neo-Nazi roots. The Parliament Speaker will contact the leaders of the country's main parties to set out the next steps later on today. Wow, that is complicated. Coming up on the show, though, countries across Europe are implementing more stringent restrictions as COVID infections rise. We'll explore some of the new, some of the old tactics and the WHO's recommendations after the break.
So, like I said earlier, guys, in euro dollars, this is the time you want to see euro is green and the dollar is red. So this is the perfect time to buy the euro dollar. Before in Asia, was green and was red. So this is how you timing the market. So we always trade one green with one red, okay? Now, if you try to trade euro pound, will not work because they both green and I bet you it's gonna be sideways, okay? Or Aussie, euro Aussie, it will be sideways. But if you take Aussie New Zealand, This is a good trade, okay? You take one red and one green. This is how you make your money. Or OCN. Like you see, OCN is going higher now because the OC is strong, yen is weak. Let's try OC New Zealand. You see, OC is strong and it's going higher. Everything green, and New Zealand has been selling. So the best trade right now, also New Zealand, or Euro New Zealand, Pound New Zealand. Okay.
Right. Claudia's waiting in the wings. We'll come to you now, Claudia. Right, okay. The WHO has warned that the coronavirus will spread faster during holidays and the festive season. The group flagged Europe as the new epicenter of the pandemic as it raised concerns about what it called a false sense of security. Director General of the World Health Organization, Tedros Ghebreyesus, says that countries must continue to embrace preventative measures alongside COVID vaccines.
Last week, more than 60% of all reported cases and deaths from COVID-19 globally were once again in Europe. The sheer number of cases is translating to unsustainable pressure on health systems and exhausted health workers. In many countries and communities, we're concerned about a false sense of security that vaccines have ended the pandemic and that people who are vaccinated do not need to take any other precautions.
Italy has tightened its coronavirus restrictions, stopping unvaccinated people from going to the movies, bars and sports centres. The country also says its Green Pass, which grants those who have been vaccinated access to places, will become mandatory. The new regulations take effect from December 6th under more new rules which take effect later next month. Health workers, school staff and the police and military must now be vaccinated. The Prime Minister, Mr. Draghi, says the new COVID restrictions will help sustain the economic and social progress that Italy has made.
Quest'anno gli italiani hanno reagito. This year, Italians have reacted. The economy is growing more than 6%. We've regained our social life, our social interactions. We've started to behave normally again. This is the spirit of these measures. We want to keep this normality. We don't want the risks of this normality. And it's in this spirit that we took the measures. Looking at
Now احنا قفلنا أول واحدة. We did close the first trade 331. Let's see if we can take another one. We almost now 15,000, so our target for the month almost hit. And we still have like another 5 days or another week, so.
I just want to tell you what they're saying there. They're upgrading their full-year guidance, now targeting very strong organic growth. Very strong organic growth in current operating profit. See strong organic sales 2021, 2022. Expects organic improvement in current operating margin. Now, that is interesting. So the margin organically is improving because, of course, you know this is something we've been poring over, especially given inflationary pressures as well. But I wonder what this means as well. Maybe it just means what it says. Plan to meaningfully increase its marketing and communication spend this year, especially in the second half of the year. Now, of course, so the organic margin improvements there, but they're also talking about a big increase in marketing and communication spend, of course. So a strongest set of numbers, upgraded guidance, operating margin up to 33%. So a really solid set of numbers for a company that's come a very, very long way. Whether that's enough to keep the rally going, well, we'll find out, won't we, in around about an hour and a half time. Now, we're going to get Claudia in a little bit later on. I want to speak to Claudia Pensotti about what's going on in Italy. But coming up on the show, Well, this is fascinating. More signs of strength in the US economy, more signs of inflationary tension as well. We'll dig into what was a data dump yesterday ahead of the Thanksgiving. Economic data galore, plus the Fed minutes as well. We will discuss all of this and what might be a more aggressive taper timeline here on Scorebox.
Like I said, in Asia, timing is very important. Like if I have a plan to buy Aussie New Zealand, I have to make sure the Aussie is strong and New Zealand is red. Otherwise, the trade is gonna take sideways. Let me give you an example. Let's say somebody say, I wanna go long euro bound. Okay, so if you do euro bound, you see sideways. It's been for last 8 hours sideways. Why? Because this is green, and it goes like sideways. So you need to take euro against the dollar. So every pullback, and to be a perfect, you don't want the trade go against you. This is must be red, green, all green if you want to go long. If this not green, is still not enough momentum. Okay, so I know some people went long here. You bought here again, you bought here again. You should be break even by now. So even if you don't follow the rule, you must have green here against the red. Because yesterday, if you watch Asian video or yesterday video, you will see this was green, this was red. So this is not right timing to buy euro dollar yesterday. But if you, even if you can be wrong, if you bought right here in this area, well, when you drop to 22, like I said, you buy one and another one here. So when the market go higher, this is make money, this is will be break even, and this is losing money. So you end up with break even if you are wrong. If you bought 1, 1, 2, this way you make money. Your break even point, it's right here. Because let's say you bought 2, okay, so this is like $200. This is break even, and you're losing $100 or $200, so you end up with profit. If you do 1, 1, 1, you'll be breaking even, or maybe you lose little bit. Okay, so this is how you trade it. Even if you're wrong, this is how you make money. Okay, now I took another buy now on gold. Remember, first trade we did 3.31. Second trade we are doing buy, and let's watch.
Minutes show as the central bank's preferred inflation measure jumps to 4.1% on the year in October. Plus, the US is adding a dozen Chinese tech firms to its trade blacklist, citing national security and foreign policy concerns. I don't think it's an overstatement to say that there was some historic data yesterday. Now, you may have missed it. That's fine. You're doing a lot of things. You're busy. You know, I get it. But it's our job to just point out that there were some historic numbers in the data yesterday. They may not be changing the needle or the dial on what you think the market should be doing? Absolutely not. It may not change what you think is going to happen about inflation, whether it's permanent or transitory. But you need to be aware that some of these numbers are unprecedented in our lifetime. For instance, let me just tell you, what do you think that the jobless claims were on a weekly basis yesterday? I'll tell you what they were. They were 199,000. Now, that sounds a good figure, doesn't it? Because it's low, yeah? It hasn't got a 2 handle or a 3 handle, yeah? But that was the lowest level since 1969. And the Bureau of Labour Statistics didn't give us anything special to say, oh, it's because of this. There was a special circumstance. That was just a number, a vanilla number. 199,000, the lowest since 1969. Yeah, I know. Jeff was just a wee baby boy at that time as well. And elsewhere, some of this other data, for instance, the key inflation data I mentioned in the headlines. I'll give you a little bit of time to this one. It's worthy of a little bit of time. This is the prices for core personal consumption expenditures. They were up 4.1% from a year ago. That is the highest since 1991. It's the highest since I was standing in the FTSE options pit when I was a young man. Long flowing brown hair. Yeah, 1991. That's amazing figures. So look, inflation surges. I'll just go through some of the figures. Food prices, 4.8% during the period as well. Energy costs, as you'd expect, up 30.2%. Services inflation, gaining 6.3%. Goods inflation, gaining 7.3%, up from 6.4% the previous month. I'm told it could be transitory. They look pretty solid figures to me. Are the retailers managed to take advantage of that? Are they? Let's have a look at the retailers. There's been a bit of a gappy performance, if you don't mind me saying, this week, isn't it? Gap, Nordstrom. Look at this. We sort of showed you the after-hours figures yesterday. Look at this in session. Look, this is Black Friday tomorrow. This is when we have the splurge. This is when the splurge profitability historically hits the wire. Look at that going into it. I mean, look, they may be setting us up for a big rally. Maybe setting us up for a dour Christmas period. 24% lower. You don't get those kind of moves normally. 29% lower Nordstrom as well. Macy's feeling the downdraft from it. 4.4% lower. Kohl's, the best of the bunch, down 1.5%. This is the pivotal period. This is when America goes out and spends at full price. Or does it? It's that battle, isn't it? How long can you keep full price for before the discounting comes in? And let's be honest about it, Black Friday sales are all about aggressive discounting. Dollar crosses look like this as well. I will go through these very, very quickly. Look at this. There was a challenge on 112 on the euro. What happened to that European outperformance that everyone was talking about? Well, the foreign exchange, ladies and gentlemen, aren't so sure about it when we're challenging 112 rather than 120 on that pair as well. I haven't got it up on here, but just to say, oh, actually, I have got it. Dollar lira. I can show you quickly. Thank you. They're ahead of me. Mohammed's in my head. It's a strange place to be. Look, we've had a really, really, really big pop-up in the dollar. The Turkish lira fell aggressively, but it did retrace some of those declines, the Turkish lira, because the de facto ruler in the UAE, Mohammed bin Zayed, turned up in Ankara. First time he's been to Turkey for a very, very long time. Is that a vote of confidence for Turkey? It's above my pay grade, but I know the inflationary pressures are still there. I know the interest rates are still way below what many of the seasoned economists think they should be. And I'd also know that the presidential palace is leading policy on central bank. Is that a good thing? People will say maybe not. Let's have a look at the Asian indices. What is the legacy from the Asian markets? Up a couple of 100 points on the Nikkei. Flat on the Shanghai Composite, flat on the Hang Seng as well, as indeed is the ASX. So the real action appears to be on the Nikkei. We'll speak to a Japan expert in a very short period of time. What are the opening calls? I actually haven't even, I genuinely haven't even seen them. So look, this is positive. 7,300, the FTSE 100 is called. The FTSE MIB, more restrictions coming in, but we are called above 27,000 as well. The 7,000 level on the CAC 40 and the Zetrodax, where the real interest politically is at the moment, over in Berlin as well. The German market taking it like a graceful swan as well. So Germany's new three-way coalition says the country will remain part of NATO's nuclear sharing agreement and vowed to deepen its ties with Western and other international partners. The SPD-led coalition also said it's prepared to cooperate with China on the basis of humanitarian and international law. That could be interesting. And that it would focus on establishing a pan-EU policy towards Russia. Well, Annetta, that is fascinating on all of those levels. Humanitarian agreements with China, security response on an EU-wide level to Russia as well. But we've already said we're slightly compromised, aren't we, by the fact that we're taking a lot of product from Russia and maybe a little bit more to come if they get those licenses in.
Yeah, it will be an interesting one, I have to say. Annalena Baerbock is promising an active role of Germany when it comes to defense policy. So that's actually quite new. I mean, she's the first female foreign minister of Germany, and B, only the second one coming from the Greens. I don't know if you remember Joschka Fischer. He is like a consigneur of the Green Party, and he has been the first foreign minister of the Greens, and he also was sending people into war from Germany, so that perhaps she models herself in the tradition of Joschka Fischer. And it will be a different attitude towards defense as such from Germany. And this is actually quite interesting because the Greens are coming from a pacifist movement. And now she's calling for, as I was saying, an active role of Germany. Also proactively calming down crisis regions. That's what she was saying in her election campaign. So it remains to be seen what will be left afterwards, because clearly she can't just decide on her own. It's a democracy here. We have a parliament here. But still, I think what we are hearing from that new government, it's a change of tone when it comes to China. It's a change of tone when it comes to Russia. But I'm going to discuss that with Daniela Schwarzer, who is an expert on foreign relations in roughly 20 minutes here from Berlin. She'll join me here on the ground. What she thinks will be different also when it comes to business relations, because clearly the tone has been toughened up already towards China in the end of the Merkel era. Also when it comes to the foreign or the takeover law here in Germany, it has been a lot stricter when it comes to allowing Chinese companies who eventually are already have been stayed back to take over companies here in Germany. There has been more restrictions, but Russia will be an interesting one. Angela Merkel has had close relations, one could argue, to the Russian President Vladimir Putin, and whether Annalena Baerbock can live up to that relationship remains to be seen, because clearly she has no experience apart from having studied foreign relations on the international level.
Yeah, I've studied foreign relations. I did IR. Can I be a foreign minister? I don't think so. I wouldn't want that job.
Steve.
I did a bit of IR. I quite like it. I enjoyed it very much, actually. I had an excellent professor leading my... I've got to leave it. I've got to let you go. I'm really looking forward to that Daniela Schwarzer interview as well, actually. I think so many important issues. Am I allowed to tell Annetta she's doing a great job? Can I say that? All our reporters do a great job, but she's just been brilliant over this election coverage. She really has. Let's move on. The new German coalition deal states that the Green Party will have the right to nominate the country's next European Commissioner if the Commission's president is not from Germany. I think it is at the moment, isn't it? The current EU Commission president, yes, you guessed it, is a German. It's Ursula von der Leyen. Let's get out to Sylvia for more reaction on the German coalition deal. Well, does it matter if the next coalition commissioner is chosen by, well, whoever it's chosen by? I mean, it seems a bit of a strange conversation when we've got Frau von der Leyen in charge at the moment, doesn't it? I don't know. Tell me.
It is an interesting conversation, Steve, because we're talking about the president of the European Commission, and that is ultimately the biggest role in Brussels. And so it's important from that point of view. There's an expectation, I should say, that von der Leyen would be interested in a second term. But let's see how this relationship between von der Leyen and the new government in Germany will play out. It will be critical to see how that will unfold, to then understand whether she will indeed be running for president in a second term. But there's quite a lot in this new agreement in Germany that is interesting from a European perspective. In particular, the fact that the traffic light coalition wants the Commission to be tougher when it comes to the rule of law mechanism. And of course, the big focus as well is on what this government will mean for the upcoming discussions on how to change the fiscal rules. So in other words, how this new government in Germany will be balancing out the need and the idea that they want to be progressive with fiscal discipline. That will be very important. And we are already hearing comments from Austria that it is important for the EU to stick to the fiscal rules as they are. So let's see how those negotiations will unfold. But in terms of reactions, I have to say that these were quite muted in the aftermath of the presentation of this agreement. We heard from a couple of officials, including the president of the European Parliament, Mr. Sassoli. He highlighted the fact that it's important for Europe to have a strong and progressive government in Germany. And of course, we also heard from the French Minister of European Affairs saying that this new government also marks a new page in the relationship between France and Germany. And we know, Steve, how important that relation is if we want to see bold and concrete steps at the EU level.
Yeah, there are so many exciting areas with this one going forward. Thank you very much indeed. I thought you were in Brussels. I actually didn't realise I could shout across to you over at Camera 11. But nice to see you, Sylvia. Thank you very much indeed. Or I should say, nice to see you, Sylvia. Right, let's move on. I'm on my own. I can do what I like. US consumer spending jumped 1.3% in October, ahead of expectations, even as Americans confront the fastest inflation in 3 decades, or by one measure, the fastest by even further than that. Meanwhile, weekly initial jobless claims fell to a seasonally adjusted 199,000. As I mentioned at the wall, that is the lowest level since 1969. Third quarter GDP growth slowed to an annual 2.1%, which is slightly better, actually, than the initial estimate, below forecasts of 2.2%. Minutes, though, from the latest Fed meeting show several policymakers are in favour of a faster rate of tapering if higher inflation persists, giving the Fed leeway to raise rates sooner. According to the latest CNBC survey, markets are now beginning to price in a more aggressive path for the Fed funds rate, with a 56% probability of a rate hike in May and about a 60% chance of a second one in December. Colin Asher is senior economist at Mizuho Bank as well. Colin, we normally spend a lot of time talking about Japan. Maybe we'll sneak in one a little bit later on if we can. I'm really interested to know what you think of the new government. But the US, where do you stand on this as well? I love this new phrase that's coming through from the apologists of inflation. It's transient for longer. That sounds more permanent to me. But what do you think, sir?
I mean, that definitely seems to be the case. I mean, I think if you look back at the minutes, there were signs that some of the more dovish members on the committee were having second thoughts about how transitory inflation is. I mean, you're right. I mean, they still see it as transitory, but you know, there was greater doubt as to when it would start to push lower. And I think, you know, against that backdrop, markets have moved to price in earlier rate hikes and a faster pace of tapering. I think the really interesting thing is that subsequent to the minutes, we have had a couple of Federal Reserve members come out and state a lot more clearly. Both last Friday, we had both Waller and Clarida coming out saying that they would be looking to discuss a faster pace of tapering. And then yesterday, I think probably one of the more significant comments, because it comes from such a dovish member of the committee, Mary Daly at the San Francisco Fed, said that she would be open to discussing a faster pace of taper if the data remains strong and inflation remained high. And obviously that's what's happened with yesterday's data. And consequently, it does look as if a faster pace of tapering will be discussed and possibly decided at the upcoming meeting. And obviously that puts them in a position to hike rates earlier if they so desire. But Colin, I would say that, you know.
Oh, no, sorry, apologies, Colin. I just want to know, I mean, is there a lot of damage that can be wrought on the economy by 1 or 2 rate hikes? I know that's kind of a bit of a silly question in some ways, but like, we're not talking about rebasing the cost of money to what normally, historically, you and I would have looked at as a historic interest rate of 4 or 5% or whatever. We're talking about 1 or 2 25 basis point hikes. Is there a lot of damage in that? But actually, there could be a lot of good in giving them ammo if things do turn around again the other way.
No, I think you know, tighter policy, not only at the very short end of the curve, will be reflected probably across the curve. I think that's one of the interesting things to sort of discuss, as in how high rates are likely to go sort of in the 2 to 3 year sector of the curve. My own feeling is that at the moment, in the last 6 months or so, the conversation has been entirely about inflation. Once inflation peaks in 2, maybe 3 months' time, and everyone becomes more comfortable with the nature that inflation is heading lower, then I think we switch back to a little bit more of a focus on the employment side of the mandate, and the market can be a little bit more relaxed with regard to pricing of Fed rate hikes. I mean, at the moment, the curve has 2.5 hikes priced in for next year, if you assume, for example, that tapering is wrapped up in the first quarter, that still implies a fairly aggressive pace of tightening. I think in the minutes, the Federal Reserve did note that the criteria for rate hikes is considerably tighter than the criteria for tapering. And I think that, that in the short run, everything is discussed in terms of inflation. In 2-3 months' time, inflation has peaked. There'll be a little bit less pressure, less discussion about inflation, more discussion of the employment side of the mandate. And it's possible that the very elevated expectations we have for rate hikes will edge a little bit lower.
Colin, I've only got time for one more. The mean gallery tell me. So I'm going to ask you about Japan, if I may, as well. Kishida unveiling, what is it, 56 trillion Japanese yen package. That's about $500 billion as well. First impressions, easy question.
Not as significant as it seems. I mean, the total, as always, the total package size is huge. What we really need to see is the actual additional spending. It does look as if the package will be spread out over both the supplementary budget and possibly bleed into the actual budget for next year as well. It does look as if quite a lot of the money will be spending money that has already been raised from some of the previous packages which didn't get spent. So I think the actual impact on GDP will be reasonably small. In the short run, the Japanese economy should have very good momentum. It's really enjoying its reopening boom now as we speak. And I think the thing that was really interesting for me from the recent PMI data was the fact that Japanese price pressures are just in a different world from the rest, from everywhere else. Price pressures in Japan, companies remain very reluctant to push prices higher, unlike in the US where that seems to be increasingly happening. The Japanese corporate sector, very reluctant to push prices higher, and prices in Japan in a very different world from those in the rest of everywhere else.
It's just extraordinary how no matter what is thrown at Japan as well, that CPI figure is just so stubborn. Colin, we've got to leave it there. We will have this conversation in more depth another time. Thanks for joining us, Colin. I do appreciate it. Colin Asher, Senior Economist at Mizuho. Isn't that amazing? Colin's just saying they're in a different world in terms of price pressures, what the corporates can and can't do over in Japan. Wow. Okay, coming up on the show, the US slaps more Chinese tech firms onto its blacklist over national security fears. Well, so much for the rapprochement across the Pacific. We'll discuss this in some detail. Sam's done a package for us, actually, after the break.
Okay, so we have 200 profit now. 267. 320. Just be ready, guys. We can close it in any minute. Okay. 315, 312. Okay, it's going good. I guess we're gonna hit this black one soon. Maybe next hour or two. But so far this level is holding, so the option 128, wow, 115. Euro dollar. I want to talk about the option. Let's finish this trade. Okay, 347, 344. $400. Okay, good. There you go. So I'm happy with 400. 413 and 331. So did 700, 40 today. So now I want to talk about EuroCAD. We took it a few days ago. It's 125 pips now. Okay, so EuroCAD, we took it short and we are 125 pips. And Aussie New Zealand, we took it on because Aussie New Zealand dollar, we took it in Asia. Now we are up 21 pips. Okay, so this is the second trade on Forex. And Aussie CAD, about 65 pips on profit. Now the Forex account, this account is gold, so we hit our target for this month. The Forex account, if you try to get last month, we did about 25,000. And you can see this is all the trade, 25, 24, 23. So we've been doing, so it was a good month so far. This week is holiday, like I said, in case if you missed it. So I guess that's it for me today. And you guys have a great evening. If you guys have any question on Forex or gold or anything. So far we did the 15 on 1535 for Forex for gold account. And we did we did 25,000 on Forex account. So it's a good month. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. And I will talk to you later tomorrow. Actually, I'll be talking to you if you want in the chat room, if somebody have any question. Otherwise, I will talk to you live tomorrow in Asia. Have a great day.